royal family. And they came here in Venice because during the Congress of Vienna, Venice, together with Milan, they were unified under the same kingdom, the kingdom of Lombardo, where Milan is, and Veneto, where Venice is, unified and gave it to the Austrians. That's why we have the Austrians here after Napoleon. Now, the theater, after the theater, they ended. The first part of the royal apartments, even though Napoleon had been kicked out of Italy for already 15-ish years, this style that's going to come out for the most part is going to be an empire style. From the second part on towards the end of our tour, this style will be looking at some unique looking and peculiar looking rooms. Now, on top of that, the 80 years of public offices. It was quite the issue. The public workers, they basically did not pay that much attention to money. It took a lot of expertise and a lot of time. Now, this Now, this is the room of the throne once remade. And it was remade by the Maison Rubelli, which is the maison here in Italy that takes care of all the royal palaces here fabric-wise. Of course, today for safety reasons, everything is fireproof. But in the first part of our tour, they actually followed the model that you can still find underneath what you're seeing. But from the second part of our tour to the end of it, it was So this is the most important, the key room, basically. Now, we're not sure that Napoleon slept here, but we are sure that the Empress Sissi spent quite a lot of time here. This was a favorite room. This is the room of her audiences. And the royal palace here in Venice in general is that they were able thanks to the beautiful garden.
She's not.
She's not. She's Sisi, the Empress Sisi. You might have.
This is from Vienna.
Exactly, from Vienna. You might know that she spent as an empress. She basically tried and escaped the court of Vienna because she did not get along with the. But there's a few issues with these. With the, because of a precise reason. When Napoleon was kicked out of Italy in 1814, he did not have time to gather all his belongings, so he left everything here. When the second family arrived, the Habsburg, they of course found everything Napoleon had left. On their trains, because they were the first to connect Venice to Vienna, so Venice to the mainland, put it on their trains and brought everything to Vienna. So
The farm.
yes.
And then on top of
On
the
top
second
of-
family.
And on top of the third family, the blue
Yeah.
world, the base decoration just stops on the ceiling. Now, I've come to learn that that's the groups. Weird ritual concerning food and beauty. For example, you've seen her in her signature, hairstyle, but using the red parts, so the yolk of 30 eggs and a cognac bottle. So she had tight waist. So she was stabbed in when she was in the 60s. Elizabeth, she then signed herself as Sisi. The E stands for Eugene. Eugene de Beauharnais is actually the stepson of Napoleon, and he is the one in charge of the works here at the palace. That's why Napoleon never put his foot basically into his own palace. The Sisi's bed, that's actually in Vienna. We know that it was a Rococo, big, king-size bed with duvets and everything, but 1920s. This way. And as a normal husband would do, he would come and visit her on the weekends. That's why they wanted the building of the railway that connects Venice to Vienna. Now, you might have noticed that the flooring has changed. It's not a wooden floor anymore, but it used to be a wooden floor. We've got here these beautiful carpets, but they are, modern-looking carpets. They're just here to remind you that there used to be a runner carpet running for the entirety of the apartment. So we used to have wooden floor, runner carpet, and the fact that we're moving towards smaller, have the primitive version of radiators. Any questions?
For the men's small.
Bedroom is basically slept separately. So we really have the mixture and the different styles onto this room. We've also got 3 beautiful mirrors. These mirrors were made, of course, in Murano, and they were exposed in the very first of distant relatives. And these 3 beautiful mirrors in the first Biennale, and every chandelier you see is, of course, the chandelier of Murano. Back then, both in the public offices and in the royal palace, to go from one side to the other, you did not need to cross the entirety of the royal apartments, but you could choose one of these many doors that are basically everywhere. This one in particular This is also the last room where you can appreciate the you can see from the very beginning of our tour to the very end of it. And the choice of the Avila is actually a well-thought choice, because in this way each room has the same amount of light, and the people walking here, they will always be able to walk in the light, not in the shadows, where the shadows would be. It was very well loved by her people, so much well loved that basically everything that's called Margherita here in Italy was named after her, including the pizza. She was one of the first women in Italy to ever drive a car. She did side up with fascism, but it was all the time, so you could not really judge it from these times. Yeah. But they are made by assembling many Murano chandeliers. The wife of the painter, knowing how much Maximilian used to appreciate his work, she basically gifted everything to Maximilian. So we've got quite the collection here, and I think it's quite fascinating because you can see how much, yet how little Venice has changed in the 150-ish years. Of course, we did not have the water buses and the steamboats back then, because they were to be added 20 years later to that picture, so 1881. But the thing is that from the collapse of the bell tower, there was a big debate going on for 10 years between people that wanted to rebuild it and people that, so they actually did not remember how it looked exactly. So the chances are you might be looking at a slightly either taller, either smaller bell tower than the one that's actually today. And for the next room by yourself. Venice on the right. The Turkish sofa, we've got some more Hippolyto cafes going on. This time it's not Venice, it's in Cairo. Of course, you should know that we're in the middle of Orientalism, so European culture basically projected everything onto the Orient. Their scenes, their drinks, and everything else. So what you see is actually the product of European culture looking at the Orient. Every clock you see is original. She's actually the representation, the allegorical representation of justice. You see, she has this world balance. Oh yeah. And this is actually the first patron saint of the city, which is San Teodoro for the editions. Yeah. He was the original one, the original, and he became the second patron saint, but he was the Roman one. Oh, yeah. We're sitting with the artwork behind you. Those two doors, one of them actually leads to a corridor, the other one to a toilet, which is today a normal looking toilet. Back to the public in 2022, so the very last moment possible, because it was not so modest on the ceiling, where it's basically Baroque. And as you see here, they were quite charged with their service awards. He's the first king of Italy, yet his name says the second because he was already king of the Sardinian kingdom, so he decides to keep his name in order to ensure continuity to his kingdom, and it's the man behind me right here. Now, it's not that big of a bed, especially for a king. Two reasons behind that. He would measure 1.60 m, so more or less like me. And on top of that, when he became king of Italy, he was already a widow. Vittorio Emanuele III, which is not the last, but the one before king of Italy, the one that accompanies us. Referential, made and commissioned by the Savoys. We've got here a painting and over our heads a fresco. Then is Venice. She has the ducal horn, she has the cape of the Doge, she has the lion. But Venice and the lion, she's never represented looking that way, and we'll see soon why. Now the lion is showing the teeth and the claws. It's always very fierce instead. The woman on my left, it's a little bit more difficult, and I'll tell you. It's actually Milan, so for extension Lombardy. We've got the representation of the kingdom of the Lombardo Veneto. Now, as you can see, Lombardy, she's quite relieved to be back in the arms of Italy. We've got Cavour, we've got the Lombardo Veneto. There's one key character missing, and it's Mazzini. Now, Mazzini was a patriot and a Republican. The canvas, if you put yourselves in two sides of the painting where the light does not strike so bad, and you look inside of this small mirror, you might be able to spot.
Yeah, like a face. Like the
Exactly.
eyes in the mirror.
Yeah, and you can spot a little bit clearer. The numbers of voters against, which is here 81, there in the Doge's Palace is actually 69. So from one side of the square to the other, we lose it, 10 people. Now, why is that? It remains empty. Because technically the crown of the Italian territory is the iron crown that I showed you at the considered a relic. They think that inside of it there were the old nails of the cross of Jesus Christ. So they cannot have it, they cannot modify it, they decided never to have a crown, or at least they will have their own project for their own crown, but they will fall before finishing it. So this always remains empty, and as you can see, they're not represented well then.
Oh,
Exactly.
oh, but it was like a belief type of.
I mean, they did do some studies. They're not sure that they were. They are sure that for Napoleon's head, it was actually made a little bit tighter than it was before, so probably they took it or not.
Okay.
Ding dong.
Sorry, because there is you have to go through and through, but you can ask to me. Okay, go straight out and then come back to the front. Sorry, is it possible to take video? No.
Marcus Septimius Badurus. Ale coś w tym jest.
na kulturze.
Pozdrowienia Markowi, ojcu Krzysztofa Rogera, dziadkowi Michała Rogera, matce i babce też.
Have a specific name.
They thought it was a picture of the It was like the last one at the end of the thing, right?
That's crazy, right? It looks exactly like.
Yeah.